everybody, and welcome back to my channel. Today I was just going to do a birth story of my youngest little boy. I will eventually do the birth story for my other two babies, but today I'll just start with my youngest since that's the one that's the freshest on my mind. So to get it started, we found out that we were expecting in June of last year, so June of 2018. We actually found out that we were expecting the month after we moved into our new house that we are currently in. So a lot of exciting things happening all at one time. So shortly after we found out, I started making phone calls to different OBs that are in my area. We hadn't been pregnant while we were in Texas yet. My last two babies were born in North Carolina. So finding a new OB here was super important. I had a lot of things that I wanted out of a doctor here that I didn't get in North Carolina. So going on the search for a new OB was kind of a long process for me. We eventually narrowed it down to about 2 or 3 that were around our house, and we picked one and I made an appointment with them. I went in around 4 weeks and they confirmed the pregnancy through blood work and made sure that all of my other blood levels, my progesterone and everything were where they should be due to previous issues with other pregnancies. So they wanted to stay on top of it very early on, which I loved. I appreciated that quite a bit. My other doctors didn't do early blood work like that, so it was nice to have somebody that was so adamant about making sure that everything from the beginning was where it needed to be. I had 2 appointments with that doctor, my initial appointment, my intake appointment, and then I had my ultrasound scheduled for around 10 weeks. When I went in for that ultrasound and that appointment, I had a lot of high hopes because I was actually seeing the doctor and not the nurse practitioner, and I just didn't get a vibe from the doctor that I really loved. The entire appointment was very, very fast. The ultrasound was very fast. I know it's not a very detailed ultrasound. They were just taking measurements of the baby, making sure that the baby was measuring exactly where he needed to be. But just the vibe that I was getting and how long it took and everything, I just wasn't impressed. So I went home and I talked to my husband and we decided that we would start looking for a different doctor. Now I had seen one previously in about 45 minutes from our house, and we decided that we would go back to her and see if we liked it there. So I transferred all of my paperwork and everything to her, got a new appointment scheduled, and went to see her for the majority of my pregnancy. Now rewind a little bit. When we were in North Carolina, after I had my son, I started looking into more natural birthing, just a lot of things that I didn't get with my son, my first, that I desperately wanted with my second. So I started looking and found a birthing center here in Texas and decided that if we were ever going to have a baby in Texas, that this was where I was going to have him. Well, we ended up having my daughter in North Carolina, and then when we moved back to Texas and found out that we were expecting, I went through all these different doctors. The last doctor that I was seeing, I saw her for like I said, the majority of my pregnancy. And again, towards the end, it just started to feel like I was a number, that I would get called into the office. I'd sit in the waiting room. I'd sit in the prenatal room, and it was like 5-minute appointments. And I just really didn't love that. I loved the doctor. She was very sweet, but it just wasn't my cup of tea. I wanted a more personal experience. So at 31 weeks, we sat down again and decided that that doctor was not where we needed to be and that we needed to start looking into birthing centers. I remembered the birthing center that we had talked about after my first son was born, and I called him up. Luckily, they had some space open for me to join, and they were able to get me in that next week for my first appointment. So for the next 6 weeks, I had weekly appointments so that I could catch up with the midwives that were there, so that they could get to know me a little bit and I could get to know them a little bit. And my experience with that was phenomenal, and I am so thankful, so thankful that we switched. I don't think I've ever gotten any kind of care like that before, and I loved that me and baby were very well taken care of. My appointments with them were easily an hour long, sometimes a little bit shorter if we didn't have much to go over. They made sure that all my supplements and things that I was taking were exactly what I needed to be taking. They stayed on top of my iron, which we had trouble getting up. My iron and my platelets stayed pretty low, but we did get them up in time to deliver. So my due date month was February of this year, and I spent the majority of that month in prodromal labor, which is basically where your body is in labor, but it doesn't progress you into having a baby. So that was a new experience for me. I had never had prodromal labor before. So I would have anywhere from 4 to 6 hours of hard, steady contractions that were easily 4 to 5 minutes apart. And then after that 4 to 6 hours, however long it was going to be, they just stopped out of nowhere. And no amount of water, baths, showers, anything would stop it for that amount of time. And it was daily. It was brutal. For almost every day for the month of February, I had these contractions. So fast forward to February 22nd, early morning, February 22nd. His due date, my son's due date was February 19th, so I was 3 days overdue at this point. That morning, I woke up with some pretty strong contractions, timeable contractions. They had a good steady rhythm to them, and I honestly thought that this was it, that I was going to have a baby within a few hours. They were 4 minutes apart, very strong. I knew that that was it. Like, this is going to be the day that we're going to have our baby. So I woke up my husband. We timed the contractions for about another hour or so, and I decided that, yeah, we needed to call the midwife and let her know that we were going to head up to the birth center. So we called her. She said that she would meet us up there. It would take about 45 minutes, so we hung out at the house for about 20 minutes and waited for my mother-in-law to come to the house to watch my other 2 babies. So after we left, like I said, it takes about 20 minutes from our house to the birthing center. We got there, got checked in, and I was able to start laboring. However, I felt like I needed to. The midwife checked me shortly after we got there just to see how I was progressing, and I was sitting at 5 centimeters, and that was an accomplishment. I did not realize that I would be that far along and just now going into labor. So the prodromal labor had gotten me to about 5 centimeters, but obviously no labor had kicked in until this point. So fast forward again, that was about 4 in the morning. Fast forward to about 7 or 8 in the morning, and my contractions completely stopped. And again, I was devastated, and obviously it was another round of prodromal labor. They had us leave, go get some breakfast, kind of get out of the birthing center, get out of my head a little bit. Maybe I was too like, okay, we're gonna have a baby kind of thing. So they said, just get out, go relax, go walk around the grocery store, do whatever you want to do for a few hours, and then come back and we'll reassess. So we went out, we had a good breakfast, and we walked around Kroger a little bit. And then we came back to the birthing center because my contractions still hadn't picked up. In the 2 or so hours that we were out walking around, I had 1 contraction, and it really wasn't even one that I could time. It wasn't as strong as it needed to be, nowhere near as strong as the last ones were. So we got back to the birth center. We talked to the midwives a little bit, and they said, you know, it's probably prodromal labor again. So they suggested we go home, we relax, take a nap, because we had been up since very early. So go home, take a nap, take a nice warm shower, relax, have time with the babies, and that it was very possible that we could be back that night. Knowing that I was 5 centimeters already, that it was very possible that we would be back that night to have a baby. My other 2 babies were born in the middle of the night, one at 3 in the morning and one at 5 in the morning. So my midwife kind of believed that maybe I just have babies in the middle of the night or at nighttime, early hours in the morning, that sort of thing. So she said, maybe this midday thing isn't for you. Go home, relax, and hopefully we'll see you later that night. So we went home and we laid around the house, we had lunch, and I kind of noticed that every 20 or 30 minutes I would have a super strong contraction, like take your breath away contraction. And so after a few hours I started to time them, Sure enough, they were about 20 minutes. And then after about an hour, they got closer to about 15 minutes. And then by 6 o'clock that night, they were 8 minutes apart. So something about having a baby at night, I guess, it just kicked in. And I knew at this point that this was actually real labor. My body was doing exactly what it was supposed to be doing. At this point, moving from early labor, now progressing into active labor. So we laid around, let my body progress a little bit more, and we called the midwife and updated her with what was going on, and she suggested to take a bath. Said if your contractions continue after you get out of the bath, then you know that it's real labor. If they slow down and they stop, then you know it's, again, prodromal labor. So I took a bath, I relaxed, my contractions slowed down a little bit, but about 20 minutes after I got out of the bath, they picked up to, again, about 7 to 8 minutes. She said, just relax, take it easy, and call her whenever my contractions were about 6 minutes apart, and we'd go up to the birth center together. About 20 minutes after that, my water broke, which surprised all of us. Nobody expected my water to break because it really doesn't happen all that often before you give birth. So I called my midwife and she's like, well, at least we know you are definitely having a baby tonight, which that was just kind of put us all in shock. Like, because up till now it was like, oh, it's prodromal labor, it's not real. So to actually know that, yes, we're going to have a baby tonight, it just, all of the emotions, everything just started going, and it was a huge whirlwind for a while. And she said, just take it easy, call when your contractions are 6 minutes apart. So I kid you not, 20 minutes later, I was timing my contractions, and at this point, and I went from 8 minutes, my next contraction was 7 minutes, the next 3 contractions after that were between 3 and 4 minutes. I completely skipped 6 minutes. So I called her and I told her, okay, so this is what's happening. I am now at 4 minutes apart. My contractions are 4 minutes apart. They're lasting 1.5 minutes. And I can tell you now that I'm in transition, which is, if you're not into birthing, don't really know a whole lot about it, transition is between 8 to 10 centimeters, where your body is transitioning into the pushing phase of labor. And with all 3 of my babies, I knew that I was in transition because it always made me sick. And I would throw up quite a bit, but that's just kind of how, I mean, it's very normal, a normal part of labor is to be sick. So with all 3 of my babies, it made me sick, and I knew that that's when, you know, this baby's about to be here. So when I told her that my contractions are 4 minutes apart, they're 1.5 minutes long, and I'm in transition, she was like, you need to get in the car now or you're gonna have a baby at home. So we got in the car and my husband sped, even though he shouldn't have. This is about 9:30 or so. We got to the birth center at 9:45. We made it inside and I was in between contractions. I walked into the birthing suite. I was happy, I was excited. I greeted our midwife and she was like, I have never seen somebody in transition as far along as you are come into the birth center smiling. I said, I'm in between contractions, so I don't feel a thing. I am happy, I'm excited, let's go. So we got in the room, we talked a little bit through contractions. She monitored the baby, listened to his heartbeat, make sure that everything was good, checked my blood pressure, all of that. And I kind of got this feeling like I needed to push, but I was really hoping for a water birth this time around. So she was filling up the tub at the time, and I looked up at her and I said, I think it's time to push. I need you to check me. She's like, can you wait like 10 minutes for the tub to be full, and I will check you and you can get in and have a baby. I said, no, it's time. And so she said, well, let's lay down on the bed on your left side. That'll help slow things down, and hopefully we can get you in the tub. Well, it did not slow things down, and exactly 18 minutes after we got to the birth center, our sweet little boy came into this world. His daddy caught him. The midwife didn't even touch him. His daddy caught him and pulled him up to my chest, and we fell in love for the 3rd time. It was such a crazy whirlwind of events, super fast. My labor from when the contractions really started until I gave birth was just over 4 hours, which was about the same as my daughter. I had a natural birth with her too in the hospital though. So it was very fast, very just crazy. I mean, everything progressed so quick and so differently than what I expected it to. I really didn't think that it was going to go the way that it did. I thought I would go to the birth center and labor and be there for multiple hours before I gave birth. So to go in and have him 18 minutes after we got there was such a shock. So he was born at 10:03 in the morning. He was 7 pounds 3 ounces, my biggest of all 3 babies, and he was 20¼ inches long. Again, the biggest, which is crazy to say because he wasn't really that big, just an average sized baby, perfect in every way. We got to love on him for about 4 hours before we went home after everything checked out that both me and baby were doing just fine. So we got to go home about 4 hours after he was born and go home. It was about 2 in the morning, so we went home and we slept, and it was great. It was perfect, great sleep, best sleep that we've had in a very long time. His brother and sister got to meet him when they woke up about 9 o'clock the next morning, and his Grammy got to meet him. She was still here watching the kiddos, so she got to meet him as well, followed by a lot of our family later and throughout the day. He was born late Friday night, so all of his newborn appointments were early the next week and throughout the first couple of weeks after that. He was born with a severe tongue and lip tie, so nursing him in the beginning for those first few days was absolutely miserable. He couldn't flange his lips like he needed to so that he could get a good latch, and that really put a damper on nursing. That was not fun whatsoever. So he did get those revised when he was 5 days old, and I may or may not do a new video on that, because that was something that I learned just from going through my midwives at the birthing center. If I had gone to a hospital, I'm not sure that they would have told me a whole lot about a tongue and lip tie. My daughter was born with a very severe lip tie, but she was formula fed, and so I didn't really understand or know much about it because she wasn't nursing off of me. So I might do a video on that because it would have been nice to know a little bit about that before having any of my kids. And I feel like that's kind of some of the information that doesn't get passed around a lot through OBs. But we had all of our newborn appointments that next week, and he was growing and healthy and just perfect in every way. And we couldn't be more excited to have such a new little face running around, a new tiny human to love on and care for. And he has brought us so much joy, and his brother and sister absolutely adore him, which just makes our hearts swell so much more. We were a little bit nervous, not sure how they would react to him, but they have been doing so good with him. They love him to pieces. It's so much fun to watch them interact now that he's about 4 months old, and so he can interact a little bit more with them. He laughs and smiles at them a lot, and it's just so much fun to watch and see them grow together now. So I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this one up. That is my youngest baby that is 4 months old. That is his birth story. If you have any questions or comments, let me know below, and I will hopefully get the other 2 birth stories out soon. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a like, subscribe to my channel so you can see more videos like this. I will put out videos every Tuesday and Thursday, so stay tuned for more videos. Thank you guys for coming back. I hope to see you soon. Bye.